Till one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no person could ever have dreamed would have come into their way. Whatever you can do, or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings of material assistance, which no person could have dreamed would have come their way. What boldness to consider the path of awakening. And for support along the way, I didn't tune. Take a moment to be sure it's actually close. Sounds come into being and then disappear. Just like everything else. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. It could be just a little simple song, or it could be a way of life. What's the most important thing I will do today? It will be to hold the aspiration to be awake in every moment. In this moment, for instance, and what is it that I discover? What is it that is discovered? There's the body breathing. There is this moment of contact with the chair. There is this sitting here. There is the beginning of this breath. There is the rising to fullness of this breath. There is the actual experience of the decline, the falling away of this breath. One ancient strategy very useful for calming, for developing some concentration, is to really emphasize mindfulness of in-breathing and out-breathing. And whenever you discover thoughts or memories or plans or emotions, come back with a certain loving, compassionate, devoted certainty to the breath. Let everything else become irrelevant for the time of practice. thoughts may arise. The hindrances may manifest individually or in packs. There could be desire. There could be the desire to get concentrated. There could be aversion or disliking. The mind in resistance to what is. There could be restlessness, agitation, worry, planning. There could be sloth and torpor, sleepy dullness. There could be doubt. Doubt, lack of commitment, lack of clarity of the practice. These are not mistakes. These are not enemies. They're just the weather. The weather arising from prior actions, prior conditioning experiences. And we can simply let them go, simply relinquish them, and come home to breathing in and breathing out. And sometimes, when the mind is stable and the centrifugal forces of the hindrances, greed, hatred, and ignorance are diminished, sometimes the practice of vipassana, insight meditation, arises, in which the curiosity factor goes way up. What's happening? Oh, this thought led to this thought, led to this emotion. Noticing how this memory provoked this hindrance. And so we can become very curious. How is it that this self propels itself? And always, for as long as we live, there is this ground floor metronome of our lives, which is the coming and going of the breath. Be kind with yourself. Sometimes awareness will awaken and discover that the mind has been wandering for a long time. We can have fallen into the trance of the past, the trance of the future, the many trances of the personality. The trance of self-hatred and other hatred, the trance of obsession with this or that, the trance of the news, the trance of relationship struggle, the trance of problem solving, the trance of rehearsing and remembering those who have injured us, or the trance perhaps of our goodness, of our kind actions, much more pleasant trance. But this natural mindfulness, this awakening, it's simply as though the lights come on And here we are, right here in the present moment, now. Noticing that the breath each breath, this breath, has a beginning. It has a rising to fullness, a decline, and then an ending. We train the enlightenment factors: mindfulness, curiosity, energy, joy, tranquility, equanimity, and concentration. we train them on this simple phenomenon. Which then creates a quality of objective observation. It becomes clear that thoughts think themselves into being. Emotions are, in an odd way, not personal. They are the inner weather. In the Satipatthana Sutra, the sutra on the four foundations of mindfulness, the Buddha said at the beginning, "This is the direct way, O seekers, for the elimination of suffering, for the ending of lamentation, despair." This is the direct way of awakening. In a little while, because this gathering together in meditation had a beginning, it will have an ending. Using that creative capacity that exists in the human mind, why not form an intention to be mindful in all activities today? When you close the door of your car, pause for 20 seconds. Commit yourself to driving mindfully. When you step into the shower, stepping carefully, mindfully. People fall in the shower. When you adjust the water temperature, taking delight in that control. When you stand at the door to the refrigerator, pause for a breath. Notice the reality of hunger or not hunger. When you take the first bite of food, pause. Notice tasting, flavors, aroma. We can also form an intention of kindness. To be kind with ourselves today and in every interaction, with every human, with every animal. The gong will ring twice. The first is the wake-up bell. Be here. The second invites, notice the life of the feet and legs and hands, face, cheeks, lips, eyes. And then notice the intention to open the eyes. And then they will open. Notice how you do that. And then there's seeing. And now, it's now. A lot may have happened in the last 40 minutes or so. Where is it? And then there's now. There's this breath. There's this seeing. Jim, is there anything I should endeavor to announce?
I was just looking at Avi's email. Let me share a screen. Where'd it go? Look at that. Saturday, June 5th, Sunday, June 6th. Candles Group, NBC, Meta for Black Lives. It just goes on and on and on.
That's a good way to do it, Jim. Great. So I'd like to invite anyone who would like to join the Connections email list. I'm told it's outdated to say listserv.
Listserv.
I used to feel so modern saying listserv. And you can do that by going to the portlandinsight.org website or by sending an email to avi, A-V-I, at portlandinsight.org. So that's announcements. What announcements do you have about your life? How is today unfolding? Any great joys? Any catastrophes?
Good morning. It's Francine.
Hello, Francine.
I I had a very exciting breakthrough I'd love to share. And thank you, Goethe, for the notion of providence. I think I didn't know what to call sort of this new state of being until I was reminded of that word. I would say one of the biggest changes for me over the last year is maybe a detachment from longing. And I was feeling really responsible about that because I thought, well, does that make me not accountable or attached to the outcome of what I should be doing or am responsible for? Over time, I've never said this out loud, so bear with me. I realized that I wasn't so attached to the outcome, I was attached to the longing itself. And when I became aware that wasn't serving anything, and it was just somehow it was an objectification of a lifestyle or something. I guess I just made it up. I didn't know what the replacement was because it felt like it left a void. And then providence dropped in. It just showed up. So I'm really delighted and thrilled. I'm not sure what providence means, but I'm sure it's Latin, derived from something about living. It has the life word in it. So I am celebrating. I just love this awareness. Thank you. Thank you for all your support.
Thank you, Francine.
Pretty delightful.
Your garden's looking really gorgeous out there. Look at that.
Oh, it's stunning. And I finally got enough arranged. My Zydeco dance community has been looking for outdoor spaces so we can get back to dancing. So I'm hosting the September event.
Oh,
and
boy.
We'll actually, so now it's like, well, if that many people are going to show up, then I'll room the garden even more than ever. Yeah,
Lovely.
It's a real show place, and it's always really pleasing to share it. Please, anyone's in the neighborhood, please come over.
Thanks.
Hey, Robert, it's Sky. Good morning.
Hi, Sky.
Hi. I'm kind of struggling with something. I was wondering if you could illuminate a little bit. Kind of had a long 2-hour conversation with my niece, and I think that some of my problem might be boundaries. but definitely there's a lot of negativity, and I find myself listening and trying to maintain my equanimity and to maybe give her some assistance when she asks for it. But can you talk a little bit about, how to deal with people that we love who can be really negative in a graceful, skillful way?
Yikes.
Yeah. It's a little thing.
Next person, please.
Okay.
Oh boy. Family life and relatives and children and parents and spouses and partners and ex-spouses and ex-partners. It's really messy, isn't it? Well, I'm feeling a little bit at a loss for words, but I have a couple of things I could say that I perhaps could be helpful. I guess the edge of my learning really is I don't have very much influence over the course and destiny of my loved ones' lives. They really seem to have their own karmic momentum. And sometimes one sees one's loved one or friend approaching a cliff or doing harm with their attitudes, or you can see that they've fallen into strange, destructive beliefs, or you can see that they're depressed or maybe obsessive compulsive. You can see that, or maybe they're drinking too much, or not treating their children well, or something, that kind of thing. And I just had a memory from a long time ago, 40 years or more maybe. Wheelwright. What was his first name? Wheelwright. Anyway, there was a lovely couple, the Wheelwrights, who came to Portland on 2 occasions to teach. Joseph Wheelwright. And my first wife and I actually went to Ashland to have dinner with them one night. They were the first Jungian analysts to practice in the United States. And they trained with Jung in Zurich. And Joe said at some point during it that Carl Jung, he asked Jung, is it okay to give my patients, my analysis patients, is it okay to give them advice? And Jung's response was really illuminating. Sure, go ahead. They won't follow it anyway. So being attached to the outcomes, being attached to the destiny of those people we really care about is really fraught with suffering. And so the movement in my life is becoming more light-hearted, not light-hearted giddy, but light-hearted, taking it less problematically, that sometimes people drive over cliffs. And it's not my, and on occasion, one steps into a loved one's life, if it's appropriate, and takes charge and starts going to medical appointments with them, or sometimes we can be Sometimes we can assume a kind of rescuer function, but that's not so common. Mostly the task is to love people and to listen really deeply, which has that huge healing capacity anyway. But any trying to convince another of our view is fraught. Just had another. It's funny watching them. I so loved watching the way thoughts come up in memories. This was reported. Kalu Rinpoche was one of the great Tibetan teachers. When I came back from India, I was doing a master's in environmental studies at York University in Toronto. And I couldn't find Buddhism anywhere, practical Buddhism. And then I heard that there was a teacher in town, and it was Kalu Rinpoche, who's kind of like the Dalai Lama. I mean, really a big figure in Tibetan Buddhism. I heard there was a teacher in town, and I went and met with him, and we had tea, and he talked with me for an hour or more. But anyway, he was reported to have said, someone asked him, how can I get my children to grow up and become Buddhist practitioners? And his response was very interesting. He said, leave them alone. They might like to grow up and become airline pilots. But it was fascinating. He didn't have strategies for how to make your children meditators. He said, and basically the message that I think is really true is do your own practice. And your children in particular watch us like hawks. And they may or may not be following that path. Quite remarkably, children can go at these strange, unimaginable tangents from where we thought we were taking them. But they have their own destiny. So is that any help?
Well, speaking of tangents, it is helpful because it's reminding me that I need not be attached to the outcome of her life. But I noticed that after this conversation, I was struggling. So it's like I'm trying to figure out how I can release. Is it just by reminding myself these things? Or
you mean things were said in the conversation that poked your buttons?
I found myself afterwards being attached to and being disappointed in that she says she wants to change, but then she doesn't do the work. And so then I'm like disappointed afterwards, like, she's all this time and she's always asking me about spiritual things and like, please give me, some wisdom. What do you think about this? And then afterwards I'm like, yes, you're pulling these things from me only to just like leave them broken on the floor. So now how do I release my attachment to dealing with someone who's like, and that's why I thought maybe I was having boundary issues. That's like, I will talk to you for 10 minutes and then not longer, because maybe I had gotten overwhelmed. But so the internal struggle that I had was like, wow, I was really affected by that, even though at the time it looked cool, but afterwards I've been processing it. So I didn't explain my question very well, but.
Well, you are now. I have a reading for you. You ready?
Yeah.
It's from one of my favorite people on the planet, Achan Sumedho, the elder Western Theravadan forest monk. For minds obsessed by compulsive thinking and grasping, you simplify your meditation practices to just 2 words. Let go. Rather than try to develop this practice and develop that, achieve this and then go into that, the grasping mind wants to read all the suttas, to study the Abhidhamma, and to learn Pali and Sanskrit. Then the Madhyamika the Prajnaparamita, get ordinations in the Hinayana, Mahayana, Vajrayana, write books, and become a renowned authority on Buddhism. Instead of becoming the world's expert on Buddhism and being invited to great international conferences, why not just let go, let go, let go? For years, I did nothing but this in my practice. Every time I tried to understand or figure things out, I'd say, let go, let go, let go, until the desire to fix my niece would just fade out. So I'm making it very simple for you, to save you from getting caught in an incredible amount of suffering. There's nothing more sorrowful than having to attend international Buddhist conferences. Some of you might have the desire to become the Buddha of the age, Maitreya, radiating love throughout the world. Instead, just be an earthworm who knows only 2 words. Let go, let go, let go. You see, ours is called the lesser vehicle, the Hinayana, so we only have these poverty-stricken practices.
Okay, nail on the head, face palm, perfect. Thank you. Surrender.
And it's really okay. I'm not good at this, so this is an aspiration. It's really okay to say, hi, sweetheart. I'd love to talk with you. I have about 15 minutes.
Yeah. You talked about this a while ago about titration.
Yeah.
And discovering what your limits were, and I definitely allowed that to go way too far. Mm-hmm. And some of it is because I was enticed by the subject matter. And
right.
Yeah. She's got my number. She knows what I want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an occupational hazard in my role. Oh, this person's interested. Wow, this is really great. Oh, yes, oh, good. I can really have an influence on someone's life, and that's not a very good motive.
Yeah, this is where the juice is. Oh, boy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking back in retrospect, I'm a little embarrassed about who I've been on airplanes over the years, particularly... Further back, they asked me a question. Now I can really turn on the Dharma, and it's advice that I give people when they're going home from retreat, which is a good advice at any time, is if you're excited about your practice or the Dharma, and you really it's priceless, it's incredible. And it can well be transforming your life. And if you're telling your spouse or a friend about your experience and the Dharma, and you're waxing poetic, keep an eye on them and see if they're really interested. Because they may cease being interested, or they may start rebutting or whatever, and that's the time to just stop. I mean, it's actually common human decency. But for some of us extroverts, we can take it as a deep practice. Pay attention. Is the person I'm talking to interested?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. She's super interested, but the work's still not being done. So
right.
I definitely got hooked. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Robert. That poem helped tremendously.
And what a lovely impulse on your part to be helpful to her, really. But then we have to know when to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that was the trick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And thanks.
Thanks, Sky. I hear Tim, the dulcet tones of Tim.
Something that came up for me when we were talking about that. I had that same problem, especially with my son, is looking back over my own life. The biggest teaching things, most of the biggest teaching things, the best things that have happened to me have been really unpleasant things. Unpleasant things have a tendency for me to get through my thick head and actually show me, something. Bad decisions, painful things, crappy things that have happened to me. And so I kind of figured out at one point that my attempts to save my son from that sort of unpleasant, harmful, or painful experiences was kind of a form of sabotage and a disservice in a way. I mean, that's one of the things that I use to keep myself from interfering too much. It's like what that's worth.
Thanks, Tim. There's a very potent, internally I'm asking the question that some teachings don't work or even can cause harm because the context isn't right for them. I'm just asking myself, is the context right? But I think this is okay. I've been teaching forgiveness meditation for decades. And it's changed, of course, as I've grown up. And one of the items that, one of the framings that now is part of it whenever I do it is this. When it's time, for instance, to forgive one's mother, it could be anybody. I'm using mother as an example. We don't move into forgiveness too early. There may be rage work to do. There may be grieving to do. There may be encounters with the person to do, and so on. There's the work element of it behind there. But then there comes a moment when somehow or another we're ripe. And then there's a vocabulary that's very helpful, which is this. As much as I can in this moment, I aspired to let go of the past and to forgive this person, my mother, who, of course, is not really my mother. She's the person who in this lifetime played the role of my mother. She's really just another human being. Flawed. Just as the same is true with one's son or one's daughter or one's partner or that we're all, if we come back to this, all the world's a stage and all the men and women are merely players. And if it's my mother, however we're doing that, there's an ownership that we take of it and a kind of attribution of permanence. And really, she's really just another human being who got roped into kind of a difficult role. I mean, I'm recognizing that as someone's father these days. And the same is true with our children. Remember that there's Khalil Gibran, who wrote the Prophet. He carried the manuscript of the Prophet on his person, they say, for more than 25 years. That's why it's such an incredible document. But there's that line, the one that I know somewhat by heart: your children are not your children. They are the fruits of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not of you, and so on. It's beautiful. But that's a great framing too. They're not really your children. They're the children of life. And we have huge responsibilities. And then there's to some degree, we must, if we're going to live happily, we have to let everybody be who they are. And recognize that our own freedom and happiness lies from inside. It doesn't come from any of these relationships, as important as they are.
Robert, this is Had.
Hi, Had.
Hi. I love the Goethe verse, poem, whatever it is that you read this morning. And I want to connect that with B's question about right speech yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
What is my question? What did the Buddha, obviously the Buddha said there's a level of living through commitment, and he addressed people who became monks in his own practice, in his creation of teaching the Dharma. So what did he say that in the realm of making a commitment that we could look through as lay practitioners, as just people trying to figure out what Buddha was all about?
I think that the advice, the guidance to every spiritual seeker is the fundamental guidance is always the same, whether one is a monk or a nun or a householder or it's devote yourself to practice. Make driving the car a spiritual practice. Make pouring the waffle mix into the waffle maker spiritual practice. Be awake, be aware. And don't give your power away to teachers or to retreats or... It's right here. It's always right here and now. And this is the moment of our awakening. This is the moment of sitting underneath the Bodhi tree. It doesn't take a Bodhi tree. It takes the commitment to waking up in the moment, no matter what. Pleasant, unpleasant, confident, not confident. I was last night. I get confused. Yeah, it was last night. There's the story, the traditional mythological story of the Buddha, of Siddhartha, who gets depressed, and he runs into sickness, old age, and death, the heavenly messengers, and he winds up leaving. He leaves his wife and small child and his kingdom. He abdicates, and he goes off and becomes a monk in the forest. And 7 years later, after tremendous adventures, inner and outer, he wakes up. So there's this event, the great going forth. It's a colorful event. He leaves with his charioteer Channa, and he's riding his great white war horse Kantaka, and they get, as the story goes, they go a short ways or a long ways, but far enough away from the castle. And he gets down off Kantaka. He takes out his sword and cuts off his hair. And at the moment he cuts off his hair, which he's never done in his life, he cuts off his hair and gives it to Channa and says, "Take this back to my father and tell him, don't follow me." and his great white war horse dies. Bam! This is interesting mythology. But we too must come to a place in our spiritual practice where we do the going forth. It doesn't mean we leave our home and our children or whatever. What it means is that we realize that the worldly life, the life of satisfaction, this is a verb, satisfaction through Costco, or through achievement, or through consumption, or through vacation, or through etc., that it's always empty. It never works because it can't. And that's a huge transition that happens, that we have a going forth. And nothing may, from the outside, no one may even notice, though they probably will. As you become calmer and more quiet and more loving and more generous. But there's a devotion. I'm going to devote myself to my spiritual life. It's not just stress management, and it's not just I want to become psychologically more functional. I want to become better at my job, which is all good things. Those are all good things. But there's the real question, who am I and what the heck am I doing here? What is this life about? And what about this death thing? And, many people, most people never even undertake the journey. But for some of us, there's actually a sort of distinct period or moment when when suddenly our inner life comes into the ascendancy, and then we, in a certain way, we don't have any choice. Because we see, oh, right, these things I've been chasing after, they're not doing it. I've been worshiping my credit card for long enough. Or I've been intoxicating myself in one way or another for long enough. And then there's a turning point. And I would say that to be coming with any regularity to this morning gathering, I'd say it's a bit late for you to give this, to try not to do that, because it's probably already well underway. I mean, what a strange thing to do, to get up in the morning and go and sit in front of your computer and meditate. This is odd. What a strange group. And of course, the more committed we become, the more it gathers momentum. We start noticing, we wind up waking up in the weirdest places. Whoa. Who would have thought I was lost in self-hatred? How interesting that is. Well, I must go fairly soon. Anybody sitting with something that you'd like to share? I want to try an experiment. And it goes like this. I'm a little cautious because I don't want to be disappointed, but there's the possibility, if you'd like a half-hour conversation about your practice, a Dharma consult, we call them, send me an email with your phone number, and I'll call you back, and we can make a Dharma consult meeting. And it's not a therapy meeting. It's not an ongoing thing. It's a consult. And then I have on my website a donation link, and you can make a donation there or not. But the purpose is to have a conversation about your practice. And I'm thinking this, well, anybody. So my email is robert@robertbeatty.com. And maybe put Dharma consult in the subject line. I'm having such aversion to email. I've had so much of it lately. But it's the way we do it, so. Well, shall we go on out of here into our day? Shall we end with... Let's end with Om. I invite you to unmute, open the speech channel, and we'll do Om for a little bit, the dial tone of the universe, and then I'll end it with this gong. You ready? Let's nod if you're ready. Oh, I can't see you then. How about let's wave goodbye, hello, or celebration or something. All right. Oh. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May our own hearts be light as we awaken more and more. May all beings benefit from our practice.
Love that.
This gong never stops, so I have to, at some point, I have to slide my finger up the side, and right here it starts having an effect, and then
Thanks,
all right.
everyone.
Thanks for a lovely morning.
Thank you,
See
Robert.
you tomorrow.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Robert.
Be
Thank
well.
you, Sangha people.
Yes,
I'm
thanks.
gonna go feed the chickens.
Bye, Had.
You're
Bye.
going to go feed your chickens?
Yes,
How fun is that?
they love it.
When you go out to feed the chickens, you're really certain there's someone who looks forward to seeing you, isn't it? They get so excited. It's like, I am loved after all.
Cluck, cluck, cluck.
Bye, dear friends.
Bye.
Bye, B.
Bye.
Love, love, love.
Bye, Francine.
Have
Bye,
fun
Robert.
today.
Goodbye, both of you, all of you. Goodbye, Facebook and YouTube.